Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and I want to thank you for taking time from your valuable schedule to join me today. I have a special guest. One of my favorite topics is channeling, and I'm with Dr. Shirley Ryan, and she's done a new book called Channeling Thanes, Diary of a Medium, an Intuitive Empath, and a True Story. And so I want to welcome you, Shirley, and I'm going to enjoy this conversation because the way I look at it is that I had a sighting. If you know my story, I had a sighting in 1975. I saw it. I was sort of blown away. Then the second night I saw it and it was sort of flying away. And I sort of said to myself, somebody's got to know what this is. Somebody's got to know. I didn't know what this was. I was pretty floored by it. So my whole life I've been running around trying to find somebody who I think may know the answer to what I saw in 1975. And as you know my story, I went to the Canadian government, then I went after the American government, I went after the President of the United States. I studied that for a number of decades. Then I went after the intelligence people, and basically I didn't get an answer. And it wasn't until I got to people who are experiencers and channelers that I started to believe these are the people who know what's going on. And so I want to welcome you, and I'm honored to talk to you because I've just done a book called what's it called? Contact Modalities, where I look at the different modalities. And so I look at channelers, I look at mediums, I look at all these different things. And basically the way I see you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is people who have learned to somehow shut down the rational analytical ego mind and tap into the field, and you can shut out the noise and pick up the signal. Would that be accurate?
That's very accurate. Become a bridge.
Mm-hmm. And you've had, is this a lifelong type of talent that you've had? Or sometimes there's a trauma event where somebody has some sort of trauma event, an injury or a fever or something like that. No, how did you finally sort of catch on that you were in contact with something beyond your conscious mind?
It's been, it goes in and out. I was thinking about this morning because there was several periods that I would have very definite contact, and for months at a time. And then because your life gets busy and you get too engrossed in what other things that you're doing, it shuts off. And that's what happened. It shut off. But then it came back, and I think that was due to the 2008, I was in Hilo, and I had that experience with ectoplasm.
Okay, tell that story, so yeah, people have a background of what it's about.
So I was taking a tour of a plantation, exotic fruit plantation, and it was really interesting. I was with a group of friends, and the person was from the mainland, and he created this plantation or bought it and nurtured the plantation. Well, during the period that we were walking around, another friend of mine took a picture of some trees because he liked the color of the bark. And when he got home and looked at the pictures, he said, I don't know who else to ask. What is this? And it was this ectoplasm, and it's very defined. Usually you see smoky, but it was very defined, and it was moving around in circles like this. And so that was my first experience in this decade, in this last 2 decades. And I've had many, but they go in clusters. So this kind of kicked off a 10-year period, 20-year period, where 10-year period, where I started getting increasingly psychic. Now I teach other people how to uncover that psychic phenomenon, but I have to be analytical to do that, and so it keeps me kind of, I don't know, it just keeps me in
sort of grounded.
Yeah, grounded, way grounded. But then came Thanes, and she helped me move past it.
Okay,
And
is she a collective or is she an individual?
she's an individual. She's actually an extraterrestrial. She passed, let me back up a little bit. There's a group, a council group that I work with, but she's outside of the group with me. She's my eternal guide and has been with me through all of my incarnations.
Okay.
And so that's like 10,000 years. And she was an extraterrestrial when she was in the in the physical world, but passed on about the time I became conscious of her. She passed on to the afterlife, and now she's working with me as a guide through my lives here in the each of these incarnations. And she's a real kick. She's got a good sense of humor, and we've been working together on this book and another book that I'm writing now on crop circles. And so it has only been in the last year, I'd say, that I've been able to communicate on a daily basis. In fact, I call it online, on a spiritual line, all day long, practically writing these books and that kind of thing.
Okay, so she's in the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
She was an extraterrestrial. How did she contact you? How do you know who she was, or how does she make the connection that? And I guess the big question behind that is, why were you chosen, or?
I wouldn't say that I was chosen, because I do believe that we're all psychic, and that it tapped into that psychic phenomena. And she's telling me now, yes, I was chosen. Okay. I didn't ask the question. You have to ask the question in order to get an answer. And so, but I had a dream. That's when it started. Right. I started having, after the Hilo event, I started having a lot of dreams. And I wrote that first book, another book.
Okay, tell me about that, because you're telling me before. What was the first book you did?
The first one was Searching for the Waters of Antiquity. That's not it. The second book was Healing the Grid. And I kept getting these images in my mind of an Earth with, how a globe, an Earth globe will have the ley lines of the the longitude and latitude lines. Well, those were gold, but they were all broken up and cracked, and I kept getting this image in dreams, and then I got I got an image of a Hawaiian on a hillside pointing up to that grid, the Earth, and it was, I knew that I had to do something. Well, then much later, I wrote that book, Healing the Grid. It's a fiction. It's just a story of a teacher that goes out into looking for something. I won't get into that because it's kind of long. But then I started getting more and more experiences, more and more connections with this council. 4 of them are in the physical world now, but on other planets, communicating through the same method, automatic writing or channeling or whatever, meditation. Sometimes meditation it's different every time. And one time, well, I'd have to go through that. And 3 of them are part of the infrastructure of the universe. That would be Elohim, Ai, and Heim. It's all, the infrastructure of the universe. But the 4 extraterrestrials intrigued me because I could communicate with them on a different level. And at that point, I started getting images of things. And at first, she looked like a gray, and but with sparkly eyes and things like that. And then afterwards, she said, "No, that's not what I look like. This is what I look like." And she gave me the image that I have on the cover of my book. She's a redhead with green eyes, and she's been around for probably 100,000 years, and that's not how most extraterrestrials live. But she has a special case. So that's when I started really getting communication from her, and she said, "We're going to write a book," and now she's telling me we're going to write another book. And I said, "Are there more books?" She says, "Yeah, at least one more." So I went, "Okay, I'm up for it if you're up for it."
You often hear this with even Atwater, who had the near-death experience, was in the other side, and they said, "You're going to have 3 books, and the first 2 are going to be called this." Or you hear a lot of experiencers where they're told, okay, I don't know if you know the story of Sherry Wild, where she had real tough time with her experience, and she opens up the word computer, and she looks on there, and she sees page 2.5, and she's looking, what is this on there? And it's her story, and she goes, "Oh no, I'm not doing that. No." And it's like it's almost like they want you to do it, and then they say, "Okay, now we're going to do a movie," and you get this help. So is this coming like telepathically, where they sort of will help you type and do it that way?
Absolutely, telepathically, and they will help me type and help me look things. Things gives me an acronym, and I'll use a pendulum, and the acronym will connect with something on the internet, and the internet will go through the internet until the page comes up that she wants.
Wow.
And she says, I said, "Well, how do you know which one to do?" And she says, "I'm reading it." She reads everything. She watches all the videos. In fact, she started becoming hysterical because she watched a Portuguese teachers strike in Portugal, a teacher's strike in Portugal. And she was just laughing. I said, what are you laughing about? And she says, "We don't have time for me to explain." And she has fun with things. Like she got hysterical over SoundCloud. It's some kind of thing on the internet, SoundCloud. And skateboarding. She's hysterical over skateboarding. She says, "What is skateboarding?" I said, "Too long a story."
It almost makes her sound really human, like she's just like an ordinary person.
Human. They're all human.
Yeah. Well, what about the council? How do they fit into this situation? Are they here? I mean, they're looking after the planet. Are we in trouble? And that may be part of the message, is it?
It is. It is. It's actually, all of this is detailed in her book. And the good thing is, I'm going to tell you, the end is going to be good.
Okay.
But yes, they knew it was coming. They didn't know what was coming. They knew it was coming. They know They know that we have work to do. Excuse me. And I consider, in fact, their title is the Earth Council. The Earth Council. And to distinguish, because there's councils in the afterlife. My doctorate is in the afterlife. That's what I have a
Your
doctorate.
talk me about that, because that's another thing I do, is a lot of that, like with Kubler-Ross type stuff, or is it OBE stuff? Yeah, okay.
50% science, 50%
Okay.
spiritual.
Wow.
So I try to match it. I'm always trying to look things up and match the science with the spiritual, because I don't want it to be called woo-woo. I want it to become, I want all the physics behind it. I didn't get into physics because science isn't my strong suit, but I do match it with, like I talk a lot about Michio Kaku and Carl Sagan and
Wow.
Kubler-Ross and uh, um, Atwater.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she talks about near-death like experiences. I have to bring that up. Near-death like experiences and brain shifting in one of her earlier books. And that I can say I did have. I spent a couple of weeks in my office, which was down in kind of a cave-like experience and meditating. And I went into the afterlife um, quite a number of times during that time. And that was a significant period that increased my psychic experience too and gave me 10 other lives that I had lived, incarnations. And the first one was with Thames. And so that whole part of my history was revealed to me. They're not telling me much about the earlier part of that life. The person that my first life was named Andronica, and she was a healer on Mars. And so I've got a huge background on Mars, which is significant, and for 3 other planets in our inner solar system, and that's where I met Thames, and she didn't like me, and I wasn't a very appealing first life, but I was, to my credits, a couple hundred years old, so at that time, and I was pretty, yeah, she just didn't like me, period. But she nurtured me through all these lives, and now she likes me a lot. So,
And you're partners with her now.
I'm partners. We're partners, definitely.
So you do channeling things. Now, what does she want to get out in this book? What's the main focus of what she wants people to learn?
She wants people to know that that the other side is accessible, and that they are being nurtured by extraterrestrials. But the after, let me get that into broken down a little more. Extraterrestrials are all around us. There are thousands, and we're like the first tier in first rung in the ladder. Michio Kaku and Sagan would say we're probably 0.73 on the about that civilization level where the other planets are a 2 and above. There's only one other class 1 planet, and that's Vieira. Paez in our star charts, Vieira in their star charts. And
so what part of the universe would that be? Just our Milky Way, or just one? Like when you say one of our type of civilizations in what? Not the whole universe, is it?
Yeah, the whole universe.
Well, we're that low.
We're that low. That's what they're trying to explain.
Oh.
This book is showing. Yeah, we're that low, and that's an important thing for us to know about ourselves. And they're rooting for us, And when Carl Sagan sent this golden record out, and they found it, they did find it.
Wow.
And that's what the second book is about, all about that, finding it. But they want us to be successful. They want us to be abundant, and they have a track plan for how that might happen. They are working on their end. We have to work on our end. Let's say they also want us to know that we really can go back and forth. Years ago, people could go back and forth to the afterlife. And I can do it through self-hypnosis and through, now I'm pretty able to just go back and forth telepathically and through the bridges, the common bridges that I use. But I use it through, I'm a hypnotherapist, and I use it to help other people go and experience the afterlife and experience their loved ones. But they want us to know that they're not gone, and that extraterrestrials have not been given the amnesia that we have. So they're able, this is just their, it's common knowledge for them. And they've had, let's see, they've provided some information about the universe itself. Carl Sagan and Nishio Kaku talks about the 11 dimensions of the universe, and they not only list them, but they told me all about them.
And that's in your book?
It's in my book. Mm-hmm.
Give us a hint of like what, say, fourth and fifth dimension, because you always hear people talking about we're moving into the fifth dimension. Are they telling you that?
No, these are physical dimensions. Okay. So we could actually, well, okay, so it's goes from dense to less dense.
Yeah.
And so we're in the very dense part of the universe, but it gets increasingly less dense as it gets through. And I would say that the universe is about, the afterlife is about midway. So that would be the fifth dimension, and then it's the fourth dimension is the Akashics, and then the third dimension, I forget. The first dimension is the framework of the universe, and where Elohim, Ai, and Haim are out of are the foundation with the rest of the slipstream of consciousness. Some of the dimensions are actually shopping places.
Is that right?
They're shopping places. I can't even say it out loud. One is for ores and all different kinds of rock formations that you get to produce things. Okay. And specialized ores and specialized rocks that will powder down into products, and what they use to build houses and spaceships and things like that. This other one, they have really interesting names, and I wish I had it off the top of my head, but because it's channeled, it's not my information. Yeah. And it's like you reading a book and trying to come up with all the information out of the book. I did read it because I had to partially edit it, but I had an editor do. But somebody has to go through and make sure everything's there. So I did read it, but some of the others have to do with, one is I've actually been there in another because it was very familiar to me, and Thane said, well, you've been there many times, you go there more than I do. It's a place called the Golden Circle, and it's artists go there to create energy and that kind of dimension where kaleidoscopic energy is formed, something like our aurora borealis, only lots of different sizes, and they do different things. It's like a potter throwing clay on a wheel. You can go in there and you can create amazing stuff, and and that's one whole dimension. And then there's one called one is a place where you can, this will be interesting to spaceship people that are interested in flying ships. You can go in and into this one dimension, and she said, think of an elevator. It has, all of them have unique names, but think of an elevator going up and down and side to side, and all of these with the right coordinates going into this dimension, you can fast forward to any place in the universe. You can zip around in different parts of the universe, which is really important for getting places fast. And so it's a whole dimension that you can take your ship into and go somewhere at lightning speed. Instead of it's in the ship, it's in the dimension.
Okay.
So.
Now you mentioned going into the afterworld, and you mentioned doing hypnotherapy on people to take them sort of there. What kind of, can you describe your understanding of the afterworld? Is it like a heaven place, or is it like I don't know if you've done the Michael Newton life between life regressions? So can you describe for people what you have experienced in the afterworld?
Well, pretty much the same thing that the Newton case studies are only the higher the level of the client that I'm working with,
Okay.
the more developed the afterlife is. It does have those 7 planes of levels, starting from Earth at the very bottom, and then the Arc regions, and then the afterlife, and then higher to formlessness. Formlessness is where Thanes lives. She has let go of her body. But it just depends on the person that's having the experience. Some people have very detailed places that they're going to. I had one client that shopped around to different. He like went into a landing place, like a platform, and he was moving through different dimensions and picking, going forward in time, going backwards in time. He was just there. This wasn't really an afterlife experience, but it was similar. And he had to go through the afterlife, and then he decided to just go. He was he decided to experience a completely different experience. Most people go in and they only want to speak to their family. Oh. They want to find out if they're okay, if they have any issues there. Is there any leftover baggage that they need to clear up? That kind of thing. When I personally go into the afterlife, it's just a beautiful place with unusual things that you wouldn't see just anywhere, like plants that recognize you, plants that know you have consciousness and understand you, and you can talk to them and they can talk to you, and musical plants that have ringing colors that you wouldn't believe. I call it the Crystal City because there are buildings that feel like they're alive. And as I mentioned in my book, it's like your buildings here protect you and hold things in. Buildings in the afterlife give you energy and power, and they are they're not holding anything in. They are I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, you're talking about the buildings. Ours hold things in,
Yeah.
but the Crystal Cities, the Crystal City, it's one Crystal City, or are there a lot of Crystal Cities? I knew one woman who talked about being at the Crystal City. Is this one particular place?
I think that, yeah, for some people, it depends on where they are in their growth. And but I do think that there's more than just one.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of cities, and
Do the ETs and the say, I guess there would be spirit guides and deceased people, do they share this world, or are they at different levels?
yeah, that was an important message to me, is that the afterlife is chock full of extraterrestrials. Why wouldn't it be? We're a little tiny place over here, and the afterlife has, I mean, the universe has thousands of planets uh, that have life on it. And yes, they're there with us. And many people have lived lives as extraterrestrials, as I did in my first life as an Andronica. The rest of the lives were down here. That's probably, and not that the Earth is it's just dense. Yeah, it's just dense, and so I'm bringing myself out of the denseness now.
Yeah, which is where I was going to ask you next. How do you get into that field, or how do you? Because most people can want to do it, but they can't really shut it down. They can't access. They can't do out of body. They can't really do anything. So what is the process that you do to tap in? I guess you could say.
It's a trained skill once you become aware, and that's what I do. Is I help people manage their skills and learn about the universe as it was taught to me. But I've come to a place where it's just always I shut down and do the work I have to do, because I'm also a therapist.
Yeah.
So I have clients that I work with and things like that. But I also in this past year I've been up, well, since January I've been open pretty much all the time. So I go back and forth, where I used to, when I was working with Thom, he's extraterrestrial on another planet. Um, and you can look up Paez. The air, Paez is on the Google Maps,
Okay.
but they call it Vieira. And that was one of the first places I went. And it was very vivid, very colorful. I could even see it while I was talking, when I was working, years ago, I was working with doing some Zoom work with a guy. And he said, well, you've seen him now? And I said, yes, he's right here. It was like right here in my field. And the guy was where you are. And it was just layered over my field of vision. And that's how I get things. I get it in my field of vision, but it's inside my head, where you're outside my head. I can see you, I can see both. It's like a lighter, translucent vision, but sometimes it's more so.
Did they help you learn to do that? Because I work with Desta, and at one point they sort of showed her what it felt like to be in that state. Have they helped you with that, or is that something you had to sort of struggle through to learn yourself?
Um, hmm. It just all of a sudden just started happening. I started talking with Bellic Star, who's on another planet, one of my council people. And I started talking with him, and he kept becoming more and more prominent. And he said, there's actually 7 of us here. And I didn't get the 7th one. I got all 6. I didn't get the 7th one until a few months ago. and
Wow.
it turned out that she's just been really busy. She's a scientist on another planet, and she's been working to send healing energy to the earth. And so she's got all these volunteer planets um, sending energy to the sun, and it's boomerangs and comes down to the earth. And I think you see a lot of digital lights and digital orbs and things like that. And this is uh, all has to do with what they're doing to heal the earth. And it's been, but it's just like a light bulb
Wow.
opened up. And I'm trying to think if there was anything I actually physically did. I was doing a lot of meditating,
Okay.
but things said, stop all that isn't necessary.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, she said, just be in the present moment.
There we
Clear
go.
your head, be in the present moment, and allow it in. Surrender. I guess that's what I did. I surrendered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a trance channeler or a relay channeler? Do you know what you're channeling, or do you have to go back later and?
It depends. I'm both. I can maybe I was no, I'm both, because, and I don't know why I just said that, but because I know what I'm working with these books, and so I know what she's saying when I'm writing it, but I go back and read it and I go, oh, really? I just because I have this big global picture, but when I go back and look at the individual words and pages and things like that, um, I'm kind of blown away, honestly.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You may know I'm doing a DNA experiment with trance channelers where Jay-Z Knight did that when she did her channeling, where they took her DNA before she channeled, and then they took her DNA while she was channeling, and it's two different DNAs. Where
No kidding.
if the entity is running the consciousness like a trance, then the DNA should change. I've got a second person. We're just waiting for the DNA to come back now. A person who is a trans channeler. So you might want to ask her whether that's true or not. That's something I just wanted to try to duplicate the Jay-Z Knight thing, because everybody said she faked it, but I don't think she faked it. It was kind of because the DNA came back as male and she was female. So
Mhm.
it's kind of an interesting thing whether you're speaking or whether the entity is speaking. And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I would think that the information coming, if it's coming through you, you're in the dense part of this ocean or whatever, or the dark part of the ocean. The intelligence is in a lighter part. They're in a higher vibration, which
Right.
means information should be better, which is why I say that if you want to figure it out, you got to start listening to people like you who are getting information which is probably more accurate than the conscious mind.
Yeah, I think it is. Um, yes, I would say. And I really, I would like to see how that works, and how that DNA works. I've, I think that when Thanes is talking, you know it. When if I have a Facebook page called Spiritual Explorers, and she's kind of taken over the page. she's
Oh,
she's writing more than every morning. I put something in there, and I say, "You want to do it, or you want me to do it?" And she'll say, "No, no, no, let me do it." And and I looked at it today, and I thought, "Well, it's stains, stains, stains," Well, you want to put your picture up here? And she said, "Yes."
does
No
she actually? Does
hair.
she, does she actually have the hair that you painted? Is that she actually got that amount of hair?
Yeah, yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, we're gonna post that, but that's first thing I thought is like, wow, that's a lot of hair. It's like
It's a lot
pretty.
of hair. Yeah, yeah,
And
but
so she will actually like post the material. Does she ever talk through you in terms of like where she's using your voice and your body?
I don't know. I
Okay, well
haven't,
that may come. You never know. That may come down the road.
yeah, I mean, I know when she's writing through me. I know that that's not me. And you can read my, in fact, in the book, um, a friend of mine said she just finished it, and she said you can really tell when Thanes is talking and when you're talking. They're two different personalities talking there. And I said, well, I was a I was a therapist. I am a therapist, and I know what depersonalization is.
Yeah.
That's not it. She says, no, it's just there's another person there. There's another person with you talking, and it's a very different style, very different. You can tell, and she's very. She just uses a different style of communication.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be interesting. Maybe we should try you with the DNA and see whether it changes, because it's not that expensive a test, and I put up the money for it just to see, because I mean, if you get a second one that turns out to be positive that the DNA has changed, then your whole concept of the physical world and DNA changes as to what's really going on here. It really throws everything into sort of a mix.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah.
You mentioned, I think you mentioned that you do automatic writing. Was that is that Thanes coming through?
I do. I've done it with all my books, automatic writing. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
So you just put your hand down and it writes?
I don't put my head down. I type on the typewriter, and
Okay.
I know when I'm typing. And with this book, it's all things. So I just say, what do you want to? Well, with this book and the one I'm writing, the crop circle one, it's all things. And I'll just say, what do you want to write today? Where do you want to go? Because she doesn't start at the beginning and go to the end. She, like, I've got 2 or 3 chapters all completely done, and it's at the way in the back of the book. And I said, well, I'd like to see where you're going with this, because only about half of the titles, the chapter heads are there. And so I have it laid out, chapter 1, 2, 3, and I don't know what's in it. And I'm trying to, so I said, you just have to do it, because I don't know I don't know where you're going with this. And
Wow.
it's got, and it, with this book, the Channeling Things, there's a great deal of my psychic experiences in there. The afterlife, all my visits to the afterlife is in there, and my psychic, one chapter's all my psychic experience, one chapter's Thumb and his planet, um, and one chapter is all about things and how she began and how we met and that kind of thing. But it didn't happen that way. It just, like, I had all these paragraphs that were in my journal, and she'll say, take that one. No, we don't need that. Take that one, that one, that one, that. And,
Wow.
and I put them in little, files, and then I had to kind of pull from it. It was very tedious, but it, it worked. It worked. Everything worked. And no one would know that I pulled so many paragraphs together, and it all kind of fit. And how it fit, I'll never know.
Fascinating. I mean, that does sound like a straight channel where she's basically doing it. And
She's in control.
what is she writing about, like, in the last couple of days? Is there anything she's talking about? Because sometimes you'll see people, they'll react to what's going on in the world. Is there anything she's talking about right now that may appear in your next book or something? And maybe get into why crop circles. Why is she interested in crop circles?
Okay. Well, yeah, she's been very supportive, because all of the people that are on my Facebook pages, she's been helping them get through this, and helping them to understand that this is a temporary storm, and that we're going to get through this, and things are going to get better. And that's what she was saying this morning.
Okay.
And that kind of, just a lot of supportive stuff. And I'm trying to think what else she wrote. She sees images, and on the net and in my files, and she'd say, well, let's talk about that. And so I put an image up, because I always put an image up, and then she'll go off on this experience of dimensions, and and she's, or the afterlife, or whatever. She just goes her own, her own way on it. Maybe something that I have experience in, and I'll say, well, do you want me to talk about it? And she'll say, no, I'll talk about it, and then she'll give her interpretation of it. So basically she's first trying to help everybody get through this period. Yeah. And second, she's telling everybody that yes, extraterrestrials are all around us. There are people working in the background. They're helping. They're making things better for everyone. This is just something everybody has to get through. They knew it was going to come. And she said, because of free will, there's no one can tell us how it's going to turn out. However, at some point, it's going to be good. She also, she talks about the politics, about top politics and how it's going to work from there, but I don't really want to speak to that because I don't want to.
Yeah, I understand. But she does get into politics. That's a new one I've never heard of.
Yeah, she does. Because I ask her, what are we going to do here? And she'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Well, are the answers in the book? If people are going to read Channeling Thanes, do they get to find the answer, or is that something for the next book, or that nobody will ever hear what her opinion was?
No, I'm not going to. Maybe I'll wait till it's closer to our elections before she.
You got me on the edge of my seat now, even though I'm a Canadian and I'm not involved.
You're still paying attention, huh?
Well, what's the name of this site where she posts your Facebook?
My Facebook page is
Spiritual Explorers. Which one is that?
Spiritual people. Let's see, Spiritual Explorers in Conscious Life. That's what it is.
And that's where she posts all of them.
I'll send you a link, and you can.
Yeah, we'll put the link up. Does she take questions from people?
Pardon me?
Will she take questions from people?
Yes.
There you go.
Keeps telling people. I think that the people that are on there are intimidated or something. They don't ask questions. They just want to read what she has to say, and they'll say they're nervous or whatever, and she'll calm them down. And I said, well, just ask them a question. I ask all the time. Otherwise, I have a book.
I'll be on there asking questions. Send me the link. We'll put the link up.
Okay.
We'll put the links up for your book, and your personal Facebook page. We'll put up that.
Okay.
And so now tell me about the crop circles. Tell me about this next book that you're doing.
It's a response to the Golden Record. That's the title of it. I know the title. I've got the cover, and I don't know what's inside it. And so what she's done is I had this workshop a long time ago with crop circles and just sharing them. And I showed her, and she says, "Oh, yeah, this is how we communicate." And she said, "That's extraterrestrials communicating with the planet." And each of those crop circles is, it's usually a paragraph. I found that I have titles for it, but she gives me about a small paragraph of information that goes with each crop circle. And it really looks like Jim Peniston's, the symbols on Peniston's book.
Yeah.
That's what they see when they telepathically transfer. They're telepathically transferring these symbols in their mind, and it means a whole bunch of stuff. And when I said, well, what? Well, she started translating them. So they use these orbs to go down and create the crop circles in the fields. And those crop circles, if you were to just use the lines that the symbol, it would mean a whole bunch to someone that is communicating with someone else. They did that because there's thousands of planets with different languages that are that are that are unique to their planet. So what they did was they got to, after the big wars, the great wars were like 1 billion years ago. I don't know why people think it was yesterday or 2,000 years ago. It was 1 billion years ago. And so they got together when they made nice. They, they had meetings and they created this universal language through symbols. And this universal language through symbols is how they communicate on ships with different, because not all ships, some of the ships have different planets, people from different planets. And so that's how they communicate on board. So you've got two major groups of dialogue, two major groups of crop circles. One is about ships and navigation and docking procedures and all kinds of technology for shipboard technology. She was on a ship for about 1,000 years. So she was a healer on a ship, physician. And so she is very knowledgeable about these crop circles. And so that all has to do with that kind of technology. The other group is communicating and deliberating on projects, project management, working with groups on building something, yeah. That kind of thing. So all production and technology and building and group discussion and something for mixed communication with lots of different planets, and then shipboard symbols for navigating and docking and things like that. So
you're a fascinating person. You're getting some good stuff from their side. You mentioned orbs. I think you mentioned to me in some of our correspondence the orbs. So tell me about orbs. You may know that I've got I've been doing these sort of panels on orbs, and maybe you can come on to my third panel. It's as you know, it's a very controversial subject. Some people get very upset, but it seems like orbs is something that they want us to know about. What's your impression of orbs, and have you photographed them? And can you tell me?
Yeah, I have photographed them, and there's Thanes tells me there are 3 types of orbs. One's a probe, and the probe is extraterrestrial probe, and it's for just reading scientific readings like atmospheric conditions and things like that.
Okay.
They're not here to probe us. They're here to probe they have a reason for that, because they want to make sure that we're not going to blow ourselves up and anybody else and them in the process. So they're just paying attention and making sure that we're not hurting ourselves. They don't want to they're not interfering, but they are taking readings to make sure that they are knowledgeable about what's going on. So that's one type of orb. The other is a vehicle. There are vehicles for spirit transmissions. I've got lots of pictures of faces and in those orbs, and people sometimes 4 or 5 people in one orb.
Mm-hmm.
And so think of that as like a getting in a car and going somewhere orb.
Okay.
And then there's an orb that is also extraterrestrial, and that is an orb that creates these crop circles.
Okay.
And and there may be more, but those are the 3 main.
And when you photograph them, are you able to know when you're going to photograph them? And are you able to photograph them anytime you want?
I kind of stopped doing it. I was really into it before I met, probably just after I got back from Hilo, And yeah, I've got a lot of them, but after a while, you just get a lot of faces. And I've got a place in my book where I talk about it, and I have some faces showing in the orbs dancing around. I haven't done it in a while because I've just been busy writing and working. But yeah, I've got lots of them, and I'd be happy to
Sure.
to share that. And there, I can make them happen. Well, you have some that come. I mean, actually, that's not true. I've gotten quite a few just on my phone. I don't go out with a camera anymore. I've got quite a few on my phone. I'll start to take a picture. I was doing tulips last year, and I was in an area where there was not a lot of light, and I got streaming orbs coming down.
Wow.
And there's a way to take a picture of sunlight where you can find orbs. I also have somebody in Europe that takes a lot of pictures, and she's gotten some really fascinating shots. And Boudet, who is one of the scientists in this Earth Council that has been working with me, she is doing some of that streaming that with the orbs, and she is some of what the work that she's doing is allowing is connecting something on her planet with the sun, and it's channeling through the atmosphere, bringing orbs down. And some of these orbs they're pictures of, some of them are pictures of like dogs, and pictures of, but I think that they just, and people from the afterlife, and there's a mix, and some of them I saw some extraterrestrials in there.
Wow.
And there's just all different kinds of orbs, but there's 3 categories of orbs. And yes, I've got quite a few.
Wow.
Be willing to.
I'll invite you to my next orb panel. It's kind of the people who are into it, and it's almost like the people are either into it or they're not into it. They don't like it or they love it. I just sort of got into it, and I was just like, I was surprised. I don't know who you're dealing with in Europe, but I've met some people who have got like thousands of photographs and never gone public. They've got them, and some of the stuff you're going like, wow. I mean, it's like
It is.
unbelievable stuff. And I don't know about the orbs in the crop circles. That's always been very common, but people sort of ignored it. That there seems to be a major sort of something in between the big ships and say channeling, where they're doing this kind of stuff, because it seems to be more popular than it was before. I remember I saw one in 1976, but that was like one where I was pretty close to it. But now it seems to be the thing, almost like this is part of their plan of disclosure.
The disclosure is coming, and they say 8 to 10 years. By that time, there'll be so many people like me and you and people that are really into this stuff that they'll feel comfortable to. Are we going over?
No. Are they working with the government on this, or have they got their own plan of?
They have their own plan. Well, wait a minute. I haven't asked that question. Are they working with the government?
On disclosure. Well, you can put it in your next book, or we can update it when we post it.
Yeah.
Because it is an interesting question as to what they like. That's part of your book. I mean, the channeling Thanes. What is their ultimate plan? Because that was what I asked in 1976. Like, what are they up to? It's like they're here, but they must be here for a reason. And it's almost like they put lights on the ship so you can see them. They give you hints, synchronicity, stuff like that, where they're getting your attention. But eventually they have to be up to something. And that's why I say people should watch people like you who may know what they're up to. Because you can't, by watching a light fly around in the sky, you can't tell what's going on. You need to talk to somebody who's actually dealing with the intelligence, which I think you and other people are actually dealing with the intelligence.
They're all over the place. And yeah, and they're not they're only here. They're not here to hurt anybody. They're only peaceful. There's not all of the entertainment. I really don't watch a lot of this, but I know there's a lot of entertainment, extraterrestrials, and they're doing all these horrible things. And I have a I have a theory about that too. But
You have to give me your theory, because that was my next question. You're psychic. The good bad thing. My impression is that you need the good bad thing, because if you don't have that in Hollywood, nobody watches the movie. You need, the good guys to win over the end, and we triumph, and we're the good guys. And there's got to be bad aliens, or bad Chinese, or bad Mexicans, or whatever you've got. So what's your interpretation of why you think this evil thing? Because it's a big thing. You must admit that this has become very popular now. This sort of the evil alien thing.
she speaks to that actually, and a lot. And there is no evil in the world. And she says that source is created everything, and everything in the world, everything in the universe, source created it, and source is an energy. And if there's if I can't find a way to put this because I'm not reading my book, but she said she's insists that there is no evil in the world, only in the minds of man. And this dualistic society that we've created, that we are part of, is what they're working on, is to raise this planet to a class 1 level society, and that as there's a critical mass that will happen when the energy gets to a certain place, and it will cancel out the darkness. And that's what they're working on right now. They don't want a class 0.7 in the universe. And they're not going to do anything. They're not going to come here and teach us things. They're coming here as that's the other thing they said. She said, they're not coming here as saviors. They're coming here as friends. And that's what they want to happen in 2000. She's saying in 8 to 10 years. And that's how long it's going to take for people to open themselves to being to a point where they are looking for that energy that lifts them into a higher vibration, because only through lifting oneself to that higher vibration will we ever get to that critical mass.
Wow.
That's
I have another panel I may invite you on. It's the panel about is there sort of the concept, there's people who've had this vision that everything is perfect, everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, that we are sort of we choose what we manifest, what we get, and that in the end it's all going to sort of work out right, that we chose a lot of things that we sort of target as evil. I had one last question I wanted to ask you, and then I want to find out your websites and stuff. There was an important question I had for you, and the Hair of the Collective, the trance. Are they working together? Like I see this quite often in stories, that there are various aliens all sort of working together. Are all the extraterrestrials? Do they know each other? Are they working collectively? Because you even said that you're dealing with different people on different planets. So this is like a sort of a council that's working on this. It's not just one race that accidentally found the Earth, correct?
a longer, but let me just say that there is only one race, the human race, and people are going to be very upset when they find out that all of these alien visions that they're having is a projection of their own fear, and that they could walk around the earth and you'd never know. You'd never know that they're alien. And people want to make them out there. And, and they're not. They're just like us. Thanes is a good representation of the rest of the universe, and she's, she could walk down the street, you would never think anything of it, especially if she put her hair up in a ponytail. So yeah, what was your?
Did they have the concept of oneness? Do you get that a lot? The concept of love and oneness, is that part of their message to you?
Yeah, yeah. That is the universal concept, and they did have some trouble a billion years ago, but but today everything, they work together. They do have their own unique lifestyles, and there are very very different ideas about things, but they all get along, and they only want the best for us. And I just don't, um, how they did it. If Dr. John Mack hadn't died when he died, he would have gotten much deeper into this. But something he said about Bud Hopkins, he and Bud Hopkins, he was saying in a meeting that Bud, we both have clients, and these clients come to you, and these clients come to me. Why do you think that is? And then he talks a little bit about the in his book, and so I delved deeply into that notion that that our fear is distorting what we see, and and every alien, if you want to call them, I don't call them aliens, they don't like it.
They don't.
Use it sometimes to distinguish as a symbol, like a symbol for to distinguish us from them, because we look alike. So if they put up an alien symbol, that makes you think, oh, that's an alien. That's someone from another planet. But basically, they're just like us, only smart, or much smarter and much more accomplished, and they're much and they're all of that. So I did have one thing I wanted to share, but I can't remember now.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you were on the same page. I use that quote from John Mack to Bud Hopkins all the time about, isn't it strange how I'm the psychiatrist and I'm getting all the good spiritual ones and you're getting all the bad ones? And maybe that has more to do with you and I than it does with the aliens.
Right.
And that's a good way of looking at it. So last question, then tell me about where we can get a hold of your book, where we can get your messages, your stuff on Facebook, and then if they want to contact you for personal counseling or to learn what you're learning, where you can go. But the question, I forgot the question again. Oh my goodness. No, yeah, give me your website of where people can contact you and where they can get the book, Channeling Thanes. I imagine it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, Channeling Things on Amazon. My other books are up there with them.
Okay.
It's shirleyryan.net.
Okay.
And my Facebook page, I've got 4, but the one that they would be interested in is Spiritual Explorers Who Like Conscious Life Institute. I also teach, so I've got a 36 session psychic and afterlife teaching program. So that's why I have Conscious Life Institute.
Okay, so that'll be you can go through your main webpage, or do you have for Consciousness Life? Do you have a website for that?
My website is shirleyryan.net, and
okay,
you can access it there. Everything, pretty much, and you can access me from there too. Just use the contact form.
Beautiful. You're fascinating, and I want to bring on my orb panel and maybe my panel about good and evil, because you're into sort of this. I'm glad to get information. Final question, and then I'll let you go. What would be the ultimate message if you had to give it into a couple of sentences that they would want the world to know, the most important thing that people need to know?
We're here helping you through this time. I think that's the message. It's the message on. There's 2 sentences on my book. That's the message. That we're here to help, and that they're going to get through this. It's, we're going to get through this. And that they're peaceful. They don't want to hurt anybody. They're peaceful. They want people to to grow and experience life, and contribute to the universe. Right now, we're not contributing to the universe, but if we could raise our vibration, we would be contributing to the universe and experiencing all of the things that the universe has to offer, which is quite a lot. You kind of caught me off guard with that, but read the book. Read the book. It's going to answer your questions about extraterrestrial.
That was a good answer. Thank Thanes for me for the contribution that she's given to help the world, and let her know I will be asking some questions. I can guarantee you that. I'm fascinated to try to get some sort of information that's not coming through the conscious mind.
Can I give you one more?
Go ahead, sure.
Yeah. I was trying to remember earlier. It's Jim Peniston's book.
Okay.
It has those symbols on it.
Yep.
I translated them. I didn't. Thanes translated it. And the translation is really simple. They're a census taking ship. So they go around like we have a census.
Yeah.
Part of our government.
Okay.
That's what they do. They go around to different planets and different dimensions, and they map out where everything is and how many people, and all of the things that you would do in the universe to help people know where everything is.
So Thanes gave you that in the handprint that you put. Does Jim Peniston know this? Did you?
I don't know Jim Peniston, so no, I don't. But I put it up on my Explorer page. I'll post it tomorrow so that you can find it.
Wow.
It's. I thought that was the most fascinating thing, and everybody, I don't think. I think if you understood that that's the kind of things they're doing out there.
Yeah.
It's not sinister.
Yeah.
They're taking census. They're doing things, ordinary things.
You and I live an exciting life, don't you think so?
I think in terms
of, who else could have stuff where somebody's telling you and posting on your wall and giving you information? I find it absolutely fascinating. It's like, I'm lucky to have been involved with it. I'm lucky to have gotten to talk to you. I thank you for your time. And hopefully we'll do it again. And I'll definitely get your orb pictures together, and we'll bring you on the orb panel. I have a girl from Australia with 130,000 orb photos. I'm going to try to get her on, and a number of other people that they're sort of coming out of the woodwork now. And it's fascinating, even just to look at the photographs. Just fast. And the one from Australia, you'd be very interested because she has all the faces as well.
I think I know her.
Yeah. So hopefully she's going to be on. It'll probably be in a couple of weeks. I've done 2 panels already, and they were pretty popular. Just like looking at hundreds and hundreds of photographs from people around the world who haven't been paid, who just never went public, who I found, and I asked them to come on, and they came and showed their orb photographs, and just fascinating. Whatever it is, it's interesting to look at. So I hope you can come on the orb panel and this good evil panel, which is one of my big things, where people want to turn this into good guys and bad guys, and to me it's much more important the message that they're here for I don't think they're here for nefarious purposes. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. But thank you so much for inviting me
Surely.
to come back.
It's a pleasure. Honored to talk to you. And let's do it again.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.